the Leeds Lens. We've got, again, quite a bit to get into today. We're more going around this time, around the January transfer window and sort of where Leeds United need to strengthen the January transfer window. There has been some new rumours. There's been reports of Fabio Carvalho a bit. There's been reports of Josh Sargent a bit. There's been reports of Haji Wright a bit. And there's been reports of a Man United player called Shea Lacy, who is 18-year-old in their academy as well. Alan Nixon has linked us to him as well. So quite a bit to get into. Quite a lot of soft links, if we're being totally honest. Nothing groundbreaking. Nothing from Phil Hay back in the day of that level. Nothing from The Athletic. Nothing really from key outlets. But there has been rumours. So it's more of just a conversation talking about where these players, if these players could be useful to Leeds United, if these players would be interesting to Leeds United. Not as such where we're looking at really, really strong, this is definitely going to happen links, if you get what I'm trying to say. Anyway, let's start with the first story then. And this is coming in from Leeds United News. It's a bit of an exclusive from them. Obviously, a lot of their stuff is regurgitated. That's their sort of brand. They find out stories and they regurgitate them. But actually, this is an exclusive from them. And they were saying that Leeds United are linked with Haji Wright and Josh Sargent in the January transfer window. I've got to be honest with these stories. I'm not convinced on these, if I'm being totally honest. I'm not feeling that these are like groundbreaking, definitely going to happen sort of massive stories. And I do think with the likes of Haji Wright especially, maybe not as much with Josh Sargent. I think there's more truth in the Sargent side. But I do think with Haji Wright, if I'm being totally honest, Coventry top of the league at this moment in time. Leeds United have Calvert-Lewin, who we know is our number one striker. I Coventry and Haji Wright really, when he's going to be playing Premier League football, probably starting for Coventry in the Premier League next season, going to want to jump ship to Leeds United at this exact moment to go and play second field to Calvert-Lewin. I just don't really see it, if I'm being totally honest. So I also as well, will Coventry in January even look at an option to move Haji Wright on to Leeds United? I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I think he would be an all right addition. I think he's got like 8 goals this season. So someone of that ilk. And I think when we look at sort of what people want in the Leeds United fan base, I do see it in the last few weeks especially. I think a lot of fans, maybe a lot of content creators are quite on board with the likes of Calvert-Lewin in the Leeds United 11 and starting. But I do think there's a lot of fans who look elsewhere at that and look at sort of Calvert-Lewin's output in the most recent years, not in terms of like what he can offer the game outside of goals, in terms of his hold-up play, etc., but he's goal scoring, because he's not a prolific goal scorer. And I think people do look at sort of Calvert-Lewin and go, it'd be nice if we had someone who was much more able to convert chances. And I think that'd be something that obviously people will be interested in. But, as I said, I don't think Haji Wright will be the one, if I'm being totally honest. Anyway, that's Haji Wright's story. Then we've got Josh Sargent. Now, I do think there's probably more truth in this one. I do think, potentially, Josh Sargent could be someone that Leeds United look at in the January transfer window. I think the one thing that you'd say with Josh Sargent at this moment in time is, because he's playing in a Norwich team that are struggling so heavily, I do think when you look at him and look at his situation, like, he is probably going to want to move out of there. And obviously, Norwich might look at it and go, we're not going to do anything this season. We're not going to get up the league. We're not going to get ourselves sort of into the top 6 now. That isn't going to happen. They probably won't go down. Manning will probably be sat at Norwich and they'll probably end up finishing mid-table. But you look at it and go, maybe this is our time to get our best book for Sargent that we might ever do. He's not playing that well. He's playing in an underperforming team at this moment in time as well. Is the best time to sell him probably in the January transfer window? Maybe. And we know Daniel Farke likes Josh Sargent. We've seen that in the summer transfer window. So I do think if there's anything in a striker, Josh Sargent could be someone that they look at. I just don't think he's probably... For me, he's just not at the level, Josh Sargent. I think he's someone that, like, if we were to get relegated, he might be someone that you'd look at in the Championship, like we almost did with Joel Pro, where I went and bought sort of the best striker in the league in the Championship when we got relegated. And I think it's the same with Josh Sargent. I look at him and think, is he a player that's going to take this Leeds United team to the next level? Not really for me. For me, if you bought Josh Sargent in the January transfer window, you're probably looking at replacing him again in the summer. So it doesn't really have any long-term... I don't have any long-term feeling towards it with Sargent. I don't think he's quite at the level. And to be honest, as I said, I just don't fully see the longevity in the deal, nor do I see the validity in the deal either. I think the only thing I can see is, as I said, if he's available on a cut price deal where maybe Norwich would be open to doing something like a loan with an obligation in the summer or something along them lines, then maybe that's something that Leeds United would entertain, obviously, because we know Leeds United are struggling with PSR at this moment, naturally. So maybe that is an opportunity for Leeds United in that sense, I guess. But yeah, I'm not blown away by Sargent, if I'm being totally honest with you all. Anyway, moving on to the next one. There seems to be a few today. And that is Shea Lacy. Now, this is probably one that's got more... I think this has probably got more credibility of all of this. This comes in from Nixon, obviously, has his own Patreon. I think he works for The Sun a bit as well. But does get quite a bit right. Obviously has links. There's no doubt about it. And I think he's probably got the best links of all these players. And all these sort of stories mentioned. And he's an interesting player. 18 years old. Really, really highly rated in the Man United Academy. I honestly think, though, with this one, I think obviously Leeds United being linked is interesting. I don't think he's probably at the level, in my opinion, to go into a Premier League campaign. I think he's probably more someone for a Championship campaign, like you see with youngsters at these clubs. Like you look at Garner and his progression up when he was at Man United. He went on loan to the Championship, of course, at Nottingham Forest, and then he had that step up into the Premier League, and obviously eventually they sold him on to Everton, where he's actually having a good time at the moment. And again, I think you look at sort of Lacey's development at Man United, and I don't see him as someone that's going to go straight into a Premier League outfit. I think he's obviously made a few... Has he made a debut, I think, at Man United, and it didn't go unbelievably well. So I think he obviously offers bits. Like, I think he scored 2 goals this season in terms of at youth development level. So there is that. He has got that goal threat in him. But as I said, I think when we're looking at sort of a January signing that's going to take Leeds United to the next level, I don't look at a Shea Lacy in that sense, or Shea Lacy, should I say, and think that he's a player really that's going to take this Leeds United team to the next level. I don't really see that. I don't think he's probably got the credentials for it, if I'm being totally honest. Anyway, let's move on to the next one, which is around about the Brighton game, which is that basically at Brighton, obviously, Milner is someone that's been mentioned a lot of the time, played for Leeds United before, and I think with James Milner, obviously, I almost think he's currently struggling with an injury, basically, and I think he's probably going to miss the game at the weekend. And I almost wish that he was actually fit for this game for Leeds. Like, I feel like he'd have been an interesting one to see how he's getting on. Like, obviously, they've got Carlos Baleba, they've got Ayari as probably the midfield pivot that you would expect that Brighton go with at the weekend. But as I said, it does look like James Milner were missing for this one, which, as I said, is almost a bit of a shame because obviously we know he's obviously linked to Leeds United. But probably in terms of like if Brighton are winning the game and they want to bring someone on, you look at James Milner and the experience that he has, and maybe that is a sort of negative for Leeds United or a positive for Leeds United. That he obviously won't feature this weekend. But again, I don't think he's going to be massively influential in the game. But I saw the story and I thought I shall mention it in the sort of Leeds United roundup news that we obviously do on this channel and talk about it. But as I said, I don't think this is one that's fully sort of engaged and fully going to have a lot of backing from the Brighton, and he wasn't going to be an influential part in the game anyway. But as I said, with him being a Leeds lad, I think it would have been nice, obviously, him to feature against Leeds United for potentially the last ever time. So yeah, that is what it is. I always felt with Milner, I don't know if you guys agree with this, I always felt that he probably was going to end up back at Leeds United, but I do think obviously that if that was going to happen, it would have had to been last summer when we got promoted. And I look at our midfield now, the likes of Longstaff in there, Ampadu's, Stacks, Sanakas, etc. He's never really going to feature anymore for this Leeds United team, which is a bit of a shame, I think, actually. But yeah, I think that's a bit of I think it's almost a bit of a shame that he's missing at the weekend, almost, if I'm being totally honest. And of course, the final player, and I don't have the graphic for him, I don't know why, I must have forgot to do it going into this, but is of course Fabio Carvalho. And he's obviously been linked to Leeds United from multiple sports. Again, not fully something that's been casted out. Obviously, there's an understanding that he wants to leave Brentford and he's not getting enough game time. And obviously, we know he had that fantastic spell at Hull in the sort of year we didn't get promoted in Daniel Farke's first year. I do think with Carvalho, he's an interesting profile in terms of he had that fantastic year at Fulham, didn't he, as a young kid. Then went into Liverpool, didn't really get any game time. Then he had that sort of great loan spell at Hull, but he's still not managed to really feature himself into that Brentford team. I actually thought he'd be a really good signing for Brentford. It's not quite worked for him. I almost think they've got Damsgaard, who I think is fantastic in that role at Brentford, sort of. As someone who's sort of taking the spot of Carvalho naturally, and because he's one of their better players, I don't think you've seen Carvalho get into the team at Brentford. But I do think he would offer something different. I think he offers a goal-scoring presence from that attacking midfield role. But again, as I keep talking with these sort of technical players in the number 10 role, I just don't really want to bring them in. I don't really want to disrupt what we've got going in this midfield at this moment in time. I don't want to disrupt the likes of course, Longstaff, Tanaka, and Ampadu in that. I think that's sort of like something I don't really want to do. So when I look at sort of what, as I said, Carvalho can bring this Leeds United team, I look at it and go, yes, he could offer more attacking threat than any of them three in midfield. But he can't play on the right-hand side. I've never really seen him feature on the right. I think if he was going to play anywhere across the front three, he'd probably be on the left, cutting inside onto that right foot. And I don't want to disrupt that midfield three. So I look at it and go, I just don't see quite how he fits this Leeds United team. And I think what will end up happening with Carvalho, truthfully, is he might end up getting maybe moved to Burnley. But again, would Brentford want to... Brentford will still look at it and go, maybe that's strengthen a relegation rival. So I think what will end up happening with Carvalho is I think he'll probably leave the league and maybe go back to the Championship or go to a foreign league. I just don't see a team that would take him in the Premier League. And as I said, when I look at sort of what the build-up would be for Leeds United and where he'd play for Leeds United, I just don't see the obvious fit there, if I'm being totally honest, with Fabio Carvalho. But no doubt a talented player and no doubt someone who can offer. I think he scored something like 8 goals, didn't he, at the time at Hull when he had that sort of Championship time. And he has actually chipped in this season as well for Brentford when he scored, obviously, against Chelsea to level it up right at the death. So, as I said, he does have that attacking threat and he does have a goal in him, Carvalho. But do I want him in this Leeds United team at this moment in time? Probably not. If I'm being totally honest, I think we can do better. But again, I think it goes to show there will be players naturally. When we talk about, we've talked about it so much on the channel, but when we talk about what other teams are going to do in the January transfer window, you look at what Wolves are going to do in the January transfer window with the money they should have. You look at what sort of West Ham could do in the January transfer window with the money they have. Leeds have to be smart. But what we are seeing, I think we're seeing this more and more, is that there is going to be loan players available to Leeds United in the January transfer window to make stuff happen, and potentially is a way in and to sort of get over the problem that we've got with PSR, because obviously we haven't got anyone on loan at this moment in time. So them loan spots are available to Leeds United, and I think when we look at sort of what Leeds United need to do in the January window, yes, we may not be competing expenditure, but that doesn't mean we can get key players in. I don't think we can get key players in. BMG says, Scott, can you please take Josh Sargent off the thumbnail? I think he's absolutely pony. Fair enough, BMG. As I said, unfortunately, he'll have to stay on the thumbnail. But yeah, I get it. I think, look, he started the season well, didn't he? I think he scored something like 5 in 5, and it's just sort of not worked for Josh Sargent as the downturn of sort of Norwich just happened this season. But yeah, I don't think, truthfully, I don't think that's going to happen. I think, to be honest, there's this, I think the regurgitation of the Josh Sargent story is just ridiculous. Like, I think it's just easy. I think the Haji Wright, there's no sense in it either, I'm being totally honest. As I said that, obviously, when we went through it. But yeah, I don't see it. But as I said, I do think when you're looking out for deals, I think in this January transfer window, I think one bit of advice, we're not probably going to spend any more than 15 million quid on any player. So if there's anyone that looks like they're going to cost more than 15 million quid, it's probably nonsense. We also are going to be looking for players naturally in an attacking sense. I think we are going to be looking for that right winger. I think that's what we targeted at the end of the summer window. So when you're looking at, again, what players we know Leeds United want, we know Leeds United want an attacker, because the last player they were going for, which was reported by everyone, was obviously Harry Wilson. So we know that Leeds United feel that they're weak in an attacking sense. So we know Leeds United don't have loads of money. We know Leeds United are looking for attacking players. So you can quite easily start to narrow it down when you go nonsense, probably not nonsense. We're not going to buy Josh Sargent 15 million quid. We're not going to buy Haji Wright, in my opinion, for 15 odd million pounds. That isn't going to happen. So as I said, if I'm looking out for sort of summer deals or winter deals for Leeds United, it is going to be sort of probably wingers and probably people who are either on loan or under the sort of 15 million pound mark. Someone said on another video that there's possibly too much water under the bridge for us to go for 10 in January. We won't change the system at that point. Thoughts? Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should be changing this system. I think fundamentally we're going to have a lot of times when we're not going to have the ball, and we need protection for our back four, which is, let's be honest, it's doing well, but it's not like one of the best back fours in the league. So it needs protecting. I don't think we're good enough really to play with a number 10. Because obviously, if you play with number 10 in the Premier League, naturally, then you're sacrificing one of your midfield three. And I like the midfield makeup that we've got of Tanaka, Longstaff, and Ampadu. It's working really well. So I don't know why Leeds United, and I don't think they would disrupt that and bring in a number 10. I just don't see it working. And I think when you've got something that's a working form at the moment, it seems bizarre to sort of change that up. The only thing I would say, of course, with the number 10 is, yes, I don't think it's something that Leeds United will do, but it could be useful later on in games. Like if say the Burnley game as an obvious example, we're 2-0 down, we're struggling to create, then they're sat in a low block, then that's the sort of game that you could take off maybe an attacking player or a more defensive player in a Sean Longstaff or maybe even a Tanaka or Stacker, whoever you want to take off in the midfield and bring on that more creative number 10. I think that's when he could be at use. But is a player going to want to leave on loan, join Leeds United and then sit on the bench? He just seems unlikely. That whole thing seems unlikely. When you leave on loan, you're going to want to play football. So as I said, yeah, I don't think Leeds United will do. I don't think Leeds United will do a 10 in the January transfer window. I think what we've seen so far is we've been linked to Zielinski's, Pellegrini's, number 8s really, who can operate in number 10. And I think if you're looking at if we are going to get a number 10, it's going to be a number 10 who can help defensively. So it's not going to be a number 10 like a Carvalho who's sort of a diminutive player in a profile setting. I don't think we're going to look at that. It's going to be someone who offers defensive work as well. Like you look at Pellegrini, you look at Zielinski, these are both proficient in a defensive capacity as well and can do the off-ball work. So they're the sort of deals maybe that Leeds United do in the midfield. But as I said, the number one priority, which I think it would be for me, I've said it all along, right wing has got to be the number one priority. As I said, if you look at Wilson as a blueprint of what Leeds United are going to want to do in January, it's going to be, for me, a right-hand side forward. I think at maximum it's going to be probably 3. I think it will probably be 1. Is my guess, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I'd rather you put a picture of yourself than Josh Sargent. Is tripe. Has it not? See the thumbnail, BMG, is meant to get you to click. So that's the whole point. Obviously, I don't want to completely lie, but obviously everything that we put on the thumbnail is obviously something that's true and being reported today. If it's true or not is a question mark, which you talk in the video, but it's what's being reported in the news. Whilst we clearly don't have the best team by any means, it's tough to see how we can bring someone in who'll strengthen us, but will also realistically is going to come to us. Can you think of anyone? Well, I still think the likes of a Harry Wilson can be done on the right-hand side. He's still not signed a new contract at Fulham, by the way. Until that contract is... If that Harry Wilson contract does not get signed by January, I think they'll sell him to Leeds. I think that will be a turning point. I would keep very high focus at this moment in time looking at Harry Wilson's contract situation. Because if he doesn't sign a new deal, that'll be the last time they'll be able to get actual money for Harry Wilson, obviously, in January. So he's the one I look at the moment until that deal gets signed. That I would hope we do. And I think Wilson's perfect for us. I think he would offer this Leeds United team a lot. So yeah, I think Wilson potentially. But it's going to be someone of that ilk. It's going to be someone of that ilk. For me, as I said, a left-footed sort of right winger will be perfect. One issue is that we currently have is a full squad. Who would you get rid of other than Meslier? Well, we don't need to. I don't think they're going to do any more than 2. So what's going to happen? I think you're going to get rid of Meslier. You're going to bring in a loan, and then you might buy someone for about 10 million quid, and that'll be the January. I think is probably what will happen. Or you can do what you said and sort of replace Alex Cairns with maybe Mahadi, who's obviously under 21, so naturally goes in. He don't count as a squad number, so there is ways of doing it. Or you can bring someone in of a younger age profile, obviously again, who wouldn't be someone that would go down as a squad number. So there is ways of getting around it, I think. But yeah, I think that's what the January window will be, if I'm being totally honest. Harry Wilson is a fair shout. I can't think of many more, but I think we'll look at loans. I can't think of many more, but we'll look at loans. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's the obvious. I think that's the obvious way to go. Anyway, more of a shorter show today, actually. There haven't been tons of news today, as you can probably tell. And obviously, it's part of the news. As I said, part of this show is because sometimes people don't like it. All I try to do on the channel is report what has been said, and then we basically go on and go, this is nonsense, I think this is true, I think this is nonsense for this reason, I think this is true for this reason, and that is what we do on the channel. I'm not saying we're going to sign Sargent, Haji Wright, etc. In fact, I said the opposite. So that's the whole point. But yeah, that is the news today. In one out at this point, potentially, as I said, I think if we got 2 in and they worked really well, that's all we need. I don't think we need loads of additions. I don't think bringing loads of players in January is always the best play to do. In my personal opinion, I don't think that always works. As I said, we tried it. To be honest, in the year we went down, we bought in Rutter, we bought in Robo, we bought in McKennie. None of them really worked. I think Robo worked at times that season, really, but it wasn't fantastic. McKennie was obviously a disaster. And Rutter wasn't right at that moment. Obviously, ended up being really good for Leeds, but he wasn't right to help Leeds United stay in the Premier League. So, that's where I see it. No surprise that Longstaff and DCL are two good signings and they have Premier League experience. This is what I'd be looking for. Yeah, but I think you look at sort of what Sunderland have done, BMG, and they've brought the majority of their players that they've brought in have not got Premier League experience. The likes of Mukalele, Adorete, you name it, Ronaldo, left back, all these additions they've made, Siddiqui, Diarra when he's played, and they've worked miraculously well for Sunderland. So I think naturally you've got more chance of it being successful if it's a Premier League signing. But I think there's a lot of examples where players come in from far worse leagues in the Premier League and are really successful. So I get what you're saying. And I think maybe potential if you're going on the lines of, well, if you can only bring in a few, let's make them as bankers as possible, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's sort of I think where it is really. Two in is fine, and I'd agree that the maximum I'd expect is 2, but we need to go out. That's my point. Yeah, no, we do need to. I think we need to get a few, because the thing is as well is that, as I said, West Ham are going to strengthen. Wolves, I think, will strengthen. And they're direct competition to us at this moment in time. So if our direct competition is strengthening, we need to strengthen as well, don't we? Anyway, thanks all for watching, as always. And tomorrow will unfortunately be a pre-record. But what we have got on Thursday, which I'm really looking forward to, is for the first time, I think, in a long time, we're going to do a live match preview. I hadn't done that in absolutely ages when the channel was much smaller and we didn't have as big a community. So I'm quite looking forward to that on Thursday, because I'm not usually around on Thursday, but I am this Thursday. And then unfortunately Friday will also be a pre-record as well. But yeah, as I said, listen out for tomorrow. I haven't decided fully what the video is going to be on, but it'll be a bit shorter, obviously, being a pre-record. So yeah, stay around for that 8 PM. And then, of course, as I said, tomorrow, definitely, on Thursday, definitely stay around as well, because we've got a live match preview, which I'm looking forward to as well. Agreed, Goodmanson is quality, but no Premier League experience, but it's safer bet in January to get that experience. Yeah, I think that's sort of right. Anyway, thanks all for watching, as always, and I'll